You're listening to Edge of Faith, a multimedia magazine where we discuss art and culture through a Christian lens. So, Craig, thank you so much for taking time from your busy days to talk to us about your book, iGods. How are you doing today?
Well, it's always good to talk with you, Michael, and it's always a great time to consider how we, retain our humanity in the midst of the technopoly that surrounds us.
Absolutely. You know, I can't help but when I talk about these subjects to feel like a hypocrite since I'm completely drowned in technology, but at the same time know it's a concern. But we'll get to that probably in a moment.
Sure.
But maybe we could start off with, in your book, you discuss, and I thought this was truly interesting the way it started with that we have faith in technology. Because we, have gotten really, really soft, at least in the West. We expect our air conditioning to work. We expect our cars to start. And don't even get me started with the technology there. We expect it to make our coffee. We just have gotten so complacent with technology, we don't even realize it's present. We just expect it to be there. And if it slows down even a millisecond, then we lose the plot. So maybe... Maybe you should start off by maybe telling us I know you don't make any commitments in the book, but is technology good or bad?
Well, let's see. I think technology is a consolation. You can go back to the garden, and as Adam and Eve were facing the difficulties of life without God in the center of their life and life outside of the garden, God sent them out with tools. And they were tools to deal with toil. And those tools, were something to till the ground, an acknowledgement that it's tough to create a crop, that the soil can be challenging. And then also with clothing, a notion of like a loom and the ability to weave, and the idea that it's in some places it's unbearably hot, and we need hats, and we need sunscreen, and we need ways to protect our head, protect our body. And in other areas it's unbearably cold, and we need fur and blankets and layers to get through long winters. And so, in a sense, I think God has not just been a tool maker, a creator, but also given us the ability to create tools. And so, to the degree that tools alleviate our pain, our suffering, something like air conditioning, yes, how wonderful, I love air conditioning. Oh, wait, am I poisoning the environment with the byproducts of that air conditioning? I need a new tool to deal with how I'm damaging, the ozone layer. So it's been this constant thing of like solving for one problem and then often creating another. So, technology can be a great consolation, and it can be incredibly vexing.
So it's kind of like depends on how we're using it, right?
Exactly.
I got you.
Exactly.
So, with this wonderful, I guess tool might be the right word. It seems like it's getting to be a little bit more than tool, but technology, has really kind of given people this sense of self-importance. And you wrote the book the book iGods a few years ago, but it seems that it's with social media, which you discuss in the book, but it seems to have gotten even more so. And I'll use the word out of hand, where people just concentrate continuously to get more and more and more and more followers, not just to get data and information, which is what, the initial tool was to feed them. But they want people following them. And then it makes everybody feel, and you do kind of discuss that, everybody can be a broadcaster or a journalist, or, they're all putting out what they want, but it makes them feel like they're famous, even if nobody's really paying attention. They just have a lot of followers that are trying to get followers too, right?
Right. Right.
So I guess that kind of, in some ways, technology affects our ability to be humble, which is getting real close to what one of the roots of sin is, right?
Right. Yes. Yeah, well, what I tried to do in iGods was kind of go back to the core questions that the companies that dominate our lives, whether they be, Facebook, Google, Amazon, Apple. I tried to go back to the core ideas that drive the companies, or that drive the decision making. So with, say, Google, right? They're trying to organize information. They're trying to help us find our way around the internet, how to read this massive, unending book that is the web pages of the world. With Facebook, they actually started with really the question of how to connect each other, which it seems like a good thing. Like, how to make it easier to connect each other. That's kind of lovely. But how did they go about it? They asked us to answer the question, "What's your status?" That was the original question. Mm-hmm. So they immediately kind of appealed. You could say, well, a status update is just, it's just telling people where you are and what you're doing. Okay, but am I also seeking status in that? Am I seeking, to kind of be known? Am I just revealing who I am and just in a kind of a neutral way, or am I seeking something from others that maybe they can't deliver? Am I seeking a certain kind of validation, a certain kind of notice, a certain kind of love that perhaps a software isn't designed to deliver? Can we be saved by better code? I don't know. That may be kind of putting too much faith in our technology. We're asking it to do more than it possibly can. We may have. So the title of the book, iGods, is really asking that question: to what degree have we both idolized the billionaires who've created these technologies? To what degree have we placed too much faith in these technologies' ability to answer life's most pressing questions and our deepest heartfelt needs? And then to what degree have they promised us a certain kind of divinization, right, to make ourselves into sort of iGods of our own making through this pursuit of, say, followers in the case of Twitter, or even just simply friends in the case of something like Facebook? Can we really feel both liked and loved through code? The promise is sort of there. Gosh, I can like and be liked. I can love and be loved in my clicking on these buttons, and yet it hasn't quite delivered that deeper, transformative satisfaction that I think only both a transcendent and very present God can deliver.
Right, absolutely. That makes it come to mind too. We are, obviously there's lots of books on it, and we know we're relational creatures, but and I guess it feels good to be liked, but does that really? I mean, is that really what we have to replace human interaction? I mean, that's it's kind of like, I guess, when you're looking out a window and you're watching the sun come up or the moon go down, whatever. You're not, the physics of it is you're not actually watching those things. It's going to a glass, and then you're seeing it refract through the glass, and then you see it. And I don't want to get all complicated in science, but that's kind of the way this is someone likes you, but that's not actually someone liking you. That's someone pushing a button.
Yes, well, it's a kind of relationship, but it's maybe not. It doesn't express the fullness of the human experience. I guess I sort of feel like it could be that people of faith, as people who maybe believe in the importance of the body, who believe that we're created by God, who believe in the power of a hug, who believe in the power of physical presence in the same way that Jesus, right, took on human form and said, "I'm going to incarnate the gospel for you." We, I think, are going to be people who continue to believe that physical presence makes a difference. We believe in the power of a cup of cold water. We believe in the power of chicken soup. We believe in the power of sitting with someone through a season of grief, not just clicking a sad emoji on social media. We know that's not sufficient. And prayers via social media are great, but presence, right? Actually getting in your car, going over to someone's house, sitting with them, taking them out for a cup of coffee, taking them to the airport, actual physical acts of kindness, of hospitality, acts of grace, of sacrifice, will maybe be this kind of aroma of humanity, this kind of rare and beautiful thing that we increasingly both long for and can't get through our devices.
Yeah, that's, and I'm sure they'll come up with another tool that does that for us, but I doubt it's going to feel as good.
Well, there was the robot companion movement, right? That was going to be something that was going to, nobody would ever feel lonely because we'd all have kind of robot friends, robot dogs to sort of sit with us. And it hasn't quite worked out that way, has it?
It's creepy.
Exactly.
When I originally read iGods, that was kind of part of the inspiration of this issue. And because people are so caught up in self and their devices. And, we're kind of talking about how, they're getting their relations from a like button, but, they actually forget that there are people around. I mean, sometimes people will be standing in a crowded room or even be in a conversation or visiting someone, and then they're off to their devices. And I guess, both with just the personal interaction and sometimes, people send subtle clues that they need to talk about something important or need that hug that you're talking about. And they don't really see those others because they're too busy. And I think that turns around on them as well, as there's times where they might actually need a real person, but that person's too busy. And what are they busy with? Well, seeking a relationship through technology while they have someone sitting with them. So are we losing our humanity to this tool?
Well, we, in parents kind of handing devices to adolescents, to their children, without a manual, without a user's guide, we have, in a sense, trained a generation to look down rather than to look up. And that looking up is both to the person on our right and on our left, the person perhaps in front of us, and then even more to looking up to God and to sort of look up for our direction, right? Most days we start with the digital device. We check in with what's been going on online rather than aligning ourselves to God. So the need to perhaps power down in order to power up is something that I think is just being rediscovered. Let's see, the need to find community in those who are near us, who are not on our devices, I think is still growing. As a professor, I've actually watched over the last decade as the amount of students feeling loneliness has just skyrocketed. The amount of people reporting that on campuses at Pepperdine University, where I used to teach, it was just off the charts. And now at the Seattle School of Theology and Psychology, where I'm serving as president, the amount of people who need a counselor almost as a friend, as someone they can talk to, it's skyrocketing. So at some point, I think this next generation is going to decide that instead of watching other people's lives via my phone, I'm going to actually turn off my phone, walk out my door, and knock on my neighbor's door, even in my own dorm. And even though that might feel awkward and it might seem strange, I think we are going to find ourselves that our hunger for human face-to-face interaction exceeds the ability to find satisfaction by kind of peering into other people's lives and watching. Maybe the last thing I think I'd say on that is that I think we struggle because what we're looking at is other people's projections of their best versions of themselves as they'd like to be seen. And we're judging our everyday life against other people's projected happiness. And that is making us more lonely and more depressed because we measure our day-to-day life and say, my life doesn't look as extraordinary as their pictures. And we don't realize that that's an edited version of their life. That's a greatest hits package that they've put together. And so what we're going to need is maybe more honest interaction online.
That's kind of a lot like we've had that problem for years. We have that with, I guess, movies, romances, I guess I wouldn't say they ride off in the sunset because that would be telling my age, but they always have them run off in a romantic frenzy at the end of a movie, and so they got together, but they don't ever show that the day after that is where it becomes work right. And you work on a relationship. You didn't run off into the sunset. And I guess that's kind of the same thing. You talking about, going next door and actually getting a person to talk to, it made me think, a few years back there was a video that was showing like a two-case scenario. It was a guy walking around with his phone and not paying attention. He walked right past this girl and, ended up having nothing. Then it showed the next piece where he wasn't using the phone and he actually asked her for directions instead of the phone. And then they shows them dating and this and married and having children and growing old together. And you're like, well, that's a really cool video. They used technology to present it. It went viral, so everybody liked it. But what really happens with such things? You're like, okay, there's supposed to be a point, but I think they forget, right? So now, iGods was what originally inspired me for thinking about. I guess a lot of people are concerned about the way technology is. But I think back in April, you actually published, I guess you would call it a sequel to iGods, because iGods is about Apple and Amazon and Google and Facebook. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the name and a little bit about your newer book?
Yeah, well, I'm actually so thrilled to contribute to this issue because my latest book addresses some of the same questions. It's called Selfies, Searching for the Image of God in a Digital Age. And I'm focusing a lot upon Instagram and Snapchat and adolescence, and trying to help young people tie in their self-imaging to the long history of self-imaging, right, where you've always had painters and sculptors making images of themselves, self-portraits, but even trying to take it even further back and sort of say that God was the original self-imaging God, and that we are, in a sense, God's selfies. That God, in desiring relationship, has this expression, right? We were made in the image of God. And so our efforts to imagine ourselves are a sense of kind of honoring that divine imprint upon us, and yet maybe our dissatisfaction with how we look or how we appear, or our attacking of other people for their self-images and self-imaging is in some ways an attack on the glory and beauty of God that resides within all of us. So it's a chance to kind of reclaim the Imago Dei, that divine imprint that is the starting point for all of us. And I think that the kind of where Instagram and Snapchat, I think, apply in interesting ways is that Instagram also, I think, often includes insta pressure to perform and to be perfect. It's about a beautiful image, and often those images are idealized. And that can be a great way, in a sense, to praise God and say, look at this beauty that I found in this meal or on this mountaintop or at this beach. But if we only present beautiful images and idealized images, it becomes almost oppressive when what about when I'm not surrounded by beauty, or when things aren't going perfectly. And I actually am affirming young people who kind of sought refuge in Snapchat as a place to let their hair down and to be more honest about who they are, where you initially had images that would disappear. So you didn't have to worry about whether you looked perfect or felt perfect. You could be more honest about maybe just something stupid you did, or something embarrassing that you did, or even feelings that you're having that maybe aren't insta-perfect
right.
and ready to be captured permanently. And so I guess I want to give young people, I think, permission to be honest both about how they're feeling, and then therefore maybe to be more honest with God and each other about how they're feeling. And so they don't feel as alone in the struggle as they measure themselves maybe against an Instagram highly polished image that other people have put up there, that we might be able to feel both our need, our fallenness, and to feel a sense of being loved, that we're not alone, that we are made in God's image, and are precious in His sight.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I'll have to comment. It's too bad that it doesn't take 4 seconds to do a screenshot. So those aren't fleeting moments. But in a more serious note, though, as you discuss that's it truly is an important issue, because when you talk about this loneliness and teens, and both at my art gallery and in my personal life, I'm very aware of the great increase of teen suicide and depression. And I can't help but think that this, now I guess they would be lonely anyway, but I don't know if this doesn't develop a new, more permanent loneliness because people don't know how to get out of it. But it's a big issue, right?
Well, Donna Freitas is a researcher and did a study amongst adolescents, a lot of college students actually. She talked to students at colleges, both Catholic colleges, Protestant university students, and then students who just were at maybe mainstream state schools or private schools. And she was worried by what she called the happiness effect, which is that social media has kind of demanded that we present a certain side of ourselves that is like a series of mountaintop moments or sunset moments where we're deliriously happy and things are gloriously beautiful. And the more time that we spend on social media looking at other people's perfect lives, at least as captured in an image, the more depressed we get. And we sort of start to say, gosh, their life looks so great, and why does mine look so terrible? And so somehow we have to break that cycle of kind of putting kids into, I would call, performance anxiety, right, where they feel the need to make their life look perfect and to appear always happy to a broad public from a very early age. That's a lot of pressure, right? We dealt with what we would call peer pressure. Well, now it's more like globalized pressure of a permanent digital record that is being attached to you. And that's just an awful lot of, that's a lot to put on young people's shoulders while they're still even trying to develop their identity and have a sense of like, who am I and whose am I, right? Who am I in relationship to God and to the world? That's a lot of pressure that comes with that phone. I wrote the book Selfies as a way to maybe give people permission to push the pause button, to think about the ways in which they might be more beautiful than they've imagined, more beloved by God than they imagined, and to then start see each other in that way online. And so how do I love people via the digital space? How do I think before I tweet? How do I, what does digital discipleship look like? Am I posting for the sake of me, or am I thinking about the impact that this photo of me and my friends out celebrating might have upon those who are not with us? So to take the FOMO, the fear of missing out, that many young people express, to take that seriously, and to maybe say, I don't need to post pictures of me and my friends having a great time, because what about all my other friends who aren't with us at that moment? How am I making them feel? So that idea of thinking before you tweet is something I think we really need to develop.
That's an awesome point. We're supposed to be witnesses to God, and I'm not trying to be a fuddy-duddy. People should have fun, and they should tweet things about, fun times. But they should also keep a conscious thought in their mind about what their witness is and who it might affect and how it might affect them.
That's it.
Like I said, I'm not trying to rain on anybody's parade.
Correct.
So, no,
that's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
So, I guess my first thought, because we're coming towards the end, is we have to have the both must reads, iGods and Selfies. So everyone has to buy a copy of both. And here's my deliverable to them is they need to buy a second set and either give it to a friend or walk over and give it to their neighbor so they can get some personal interaction.
I like that. I like that.
But that being said, with you writing 2 books, I'm going to deem you the subject matter expert. So I'm going to ask that question now. So what do we do about all this? Or what can we do about all this?
I think if we go back and realize that these devices are actually tools that were designed to serve us, and if at some point we feel like we are now serving it, we are following its agenda, we are responding to the notifications that it is pushing towards us, then we maybe need to reevaluate our relationship to it and to take back the power and the control in our own hands, to have that sense of agency back. And so I guess I'm a bit of an advocate for a digital detox, tech Sabbaths. There's a woman in the Bay Area, Tiffany Schlain, who is a technologist, is surrounded by Silicon Valley and people who are very driven in their coding lives. But she started a movement of trying to reclaim the Sabbath, and so she says that she and her family, she's a Jewish family. They take Friday night very seriously. They power down. They shut their devices off to have an actual digital tech Sabbath as a way of recharging as a family, as just trying to be engaged in community with each other, and to take a break from that other agenda, from those interruptions. And so she's created, along with another group, a National Day of Unplugging to just challenge people to think about unplugging for a day and to realize maybe how dependent we've become upon our devices, and to step back and to maybe reclaim our humanity and pause long enough for God to speak into our life and not just our digital feeds, to feed on a little more enduring substance, the presence of God, rather than the presence of an electronic pulse in our hands.
That's an awesome way to end this. I mean, I know our Bible is laid on the phone too, and you can read. I mean, we got the whole world in that little phone, but we have to stop and take a break every so often and just smell the roses, as they say, or find out that people are even more fun in person than online. So,
well, and to not treat ourselves like a device, to not measure our lives by how efficient we are, to not think of our life as what we're meant to do is to be information processors, and to realize I don't have to master all media as a way of pursuing abundant life. It's not easy, but I believe that we can reclaim the proper relationship by letting technology serve us rather than us being kind of subject to it.
Perfect. All right. Well, once again, thank you for taking the time to talk with us, and you have a wonderful evening.
Thanks, Michael. Keep up the great work. Enjoy it.